Good morning, everyone. We're getting started just a few minutes late this morning, but we do have a quorum now, so we will be able to take action on our items this morning. Sue Greer is generally the chair, and she is unable to be here today, so I'm sitting in for that. So hopefully I won't step on anything too much. So again, a good morning, and our first item on the agenda is the town of Perryville, and Michael is doing the presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yep. All right, great. My name is Mike Grassman. Today I'm going to talk to you about a mapping extension request for the town of Perryville. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the town, it is an incorporated municipality in Cecil County that is right along the banks of the Susquehanna at the Upper Bay. So local jurisdictions have 24 months to approve the summary draft maps once they've been delivered by the commission. The original summary draft maps were delivered to the town of Perryville on January 29, 2021, with an original deadline of January 28, 2023. The town requested an extension before. The first 90-day extension deadline was on April 28. However, the town was unable to meet this deadline, so they're now requesting a second extension for a deadline of July 28, 2023. We are recommending approval of this extension, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
How come they couldn't meet their timeline?
So the town has been trying to coordinate this with their 6-year comprehensive review update. There have been, I've been in correspondence with them a lot. There have been some hiccups that they've had and a lot of questions going through the ordinance update. It's been a while since they've had one. It's been more than 6 years. So they just have some delays and they want to bring both into the commission at the same time. They are scheduled to have this heard. The initial introduction is going to be today, I believe, for the ordinance and the mapping extension. Public hearing is going to be later in the month, and then they're going to have the town council should hopefully approve this all on July 6th. Yes, sir.
So, Michael, what happens if they can't meet the deadline for the second extension?
That's an excellent question, and it's kind of beyond my scope of knowledge. I don't know if Kate or Emily or someone would want to jump in on that.
We would ask them to come into the commission and tell us what their plans were on getting the map adoption completed. If they had no plans, then I think there would be some further discussion by the subcommittee about ways to ensure that would happen. But they are working on that comp review. I think it just was a number of items they had to deal with this spring to schedule on their agendas.
Thank you.
Sounds minor, scheduling on the agenda.
That's good.
It sounds pretty easy.
Any other questions? Yeah. Thank you.
I'll make a motion that the Critical Areas Commission approve the requested extension in time for the approval of the updated Critical Areas maps. Is that appropriate, Madam Chair?
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other discussion?
Can I ask one question? Is the extension, is the motion for the
90 days.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, sorry,
Thanks.
I should.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Next up on our agenda is the Queen Anne's County Armored Storage Growth application, and Susan is up for presentation. And while Susan's getting ready, just to let folks know that we do have representatives from the community and the county, and is that it? And so we will, after the presentation, we'll have an opportunity to briefly hear from comments from them, and then we will entertain questions from the committee. Thanks, Susan. Thank you.
So good morning, I'm Susan McClue. I'm representing the armored storage growth allocation as requested by Queen Anne's County. And as the chair here Cornwell just said, we have representatives from the county, from the community, and and from the applicant to assist in answering any questions you might have after the presentation. So here are several maps showing the location of the project. Queen Anne's County is highlighted in red in this map of Maryland on the lower left side, and the project site is indicated by the yellow star on the map on the right. The proposed growth allocation site is located along Piney Creek Road in Nash Court in Chester, Queen Anne's County. So here's the zoomed in aerials of the parcels. So you can see Piney Creek Road right along here. This is Nash Court. You can also see the critical area designations. The limited development area, or LDA, is shown in yellow, and the resource conservation area, or RCA, is shown in green. So on the left, you can see the subject parcels, parcels 287, 351, and 352 outlined in bright blue. Parcels 351 and 352 are located in the limited development area, the LDA, and then parcel 287 is located in both the LDA and the RCA. So as part of the development plan for this site, the three parcels will be consolidated and reconfigured to create resulting parcel 351 and parcel 287. So resulting parcel 351 will total about 9 acres of limited development area and resource conservation area. Parcel 287 will be reduced to about 1.5 acres and located northeast of the Shamrock Road unimproved right-of-way. This will be within parcel 287, and resulting parcel 351 will be the rest of the area seen here. Parcel 287 will be conveyed to the county for passive recreational use as part of this growth allocation request. The reconfiguration has been conceptually approved by Queen Anne's County Planning Commission. Final approval will be required, and the county must demonstrate compliance with the lot consolidation and reconfiguration regulations found in Comar. The Nashville Properties LLC proposes to construct a 4-story self-storage facility that has a 39,000 square foot footprint, associated parking, and stormwater management facilities within the critical area. However, in order for a new commercial use to be established at the project site, growth allocation is necessary. Therefore, the county is requesting growth allocation to change the designation of 2.811 acres of LDA to IDA. The growth allocation request is indicated by the red diagonal lines on this slide. So if the request is approved, this area in red would change from LDA to IDA. So here's the site plan, which was also provided as an attachment to your staff report. The project LOD is indicated by the yellow line. The proposed self-storage buildings outlined in blue, and the stormwater management facilities are outlined in red. So this is a submerged gravel wetland here, which would treat the runoff from the building, and then you have 2 microbiome retentions here and here that would treat runoff from the driveway, the parking, and then this cul-de-sac. So approximately 1.46 acres of new lot coverage and 1.4 acres of forest clearing are proposed in the critical area. In addition, the project will impact 9,639 square feet of non-tidal wetland buffer, and it's located partially within the 100-year floodplain. The total limit of disturbance for the project is 2.81 acres. You can see the existing natural resources on this slide. The green shading indicates forest, and the red dots indicate forest clearing. So all the green is forest. This area here with the red dots will be the forest clearing. The small red cross hatching shows non-tidal wetland buffer impacts. So this area right here is the non-tidal wetland buffer that will be impacted. Finally, the project is, as I said before, located partially within the 100-year floodplain as indicated by the larger red cross hatching. So this portion of the building here is located within the 100-year floodplain, and also the submerged gravel wetland facility is located partially within the floodplain. Accordingly, the project must meet all county floodplain requirements. So as part of the minimum local requirements, a growth allocation application must meet the development standards for the proposed critical area designation, which in this case is IDA. The armored storage project is proposing approximately 1.46 acres of new lot coverage and 1.4 acres of forest clearing in the critical area. However, there are no lot coverage or forest clearing limits in the IDA. The main development standard in the IDA is stormwater management. 2 microbiome retention facilities and 1 submerged gravel wetland are proposed to meet environmental site design. In addition, the critical area 10% stormwater requirement has been met. The project must also receive local approval for the stormwater management and erosion and sediment control plan. All projects in the IDA are also subject to the standards and criteria for the buffer and other habitat protection areas. There is no buffer disturbance proposed for this project, and there are no direct impacts to non-tidal wetlands. However, the project will impact 9,639 square feet of the non-tidal wetland buffer, for which the Maryland Department of the Environment has issued a letter of authorization. In addition to the general development standards, a growth allocation request must also meet the growth allocation standards outlined in the state law and regulations. The Commission is required to ensure that a growth allocation is consistent with the purposes, policies, goals, and provisions of the critical area law and criteria. The growth allocation standards are location-related requirements that property must meet in order to be granted growth allocation. The full list of standards and associated descriptions can be found on pages 3 to 5 of the staff report, but I'll summarize a few of them here. For one, the critical area law requires the new IDA to be at least 20 acres in size. However, the critical area law does allow a local jurisdiction to use a provision that varies from the state standards if the alternative standard is consistent with the jurisdiction's comprehensive plan and the Commission has approved the standard as part of the local program. Even though this growth allocation is not 20 acres in size, it meets the alternative standard in the county code, which I'll go into more detail about in the next slide. The growth allocation standards also include locating a new IDA in a manner that minimizes impacts to habitat protection areas, which this proposal means because, as I mentioned in the previous slide, it has only minimal impacts to non-tidal wetland buffer. In addition, this proposal addresses the standard of optimizing water quality benefits because it is located beyond the 300-foot boundary of tidal waters and wetlands, and the project meets applicable ESD and critical area stormwater management requirements. So in January 2014, Queen Anne's County amended and the Commission approved Section 14176D of the Queen Anne's County Code, which allows a new IDA area less than 20 acres if it meets the standards listed on this slide. So the new IDA may be less than 20 acres if it's located in an existing growth area currently served by public sewer, consistent with the goals and objectives of the comp plan, and has an overall economic benefit to the community. So this growth allocation request meets these alternative standards because the project is located in the Chester-Stevensonville growth area in the zone town center district. The project site is served by public sewer and will connect to public water. The county found the proposed project to be consistent with the 2020 comp plan since it will provide a non-residential infill opportunity to conserve the available sewer capacity and provide public access to tidal waters and extend existing trails. Further, the county determined that the project will have an overall economic benefit by increasing the property taxes on the parcel and by providing public water to existing properties that are not currently served. So along with reviewing the standards, the Commission is also required to consider various factors when reviewing the growth allocation request. You may recognize a few of them because some of them overlap with the alternative standards I just reviewed. The full list of factors can be found on pages 5 to 11 of the staff report. In addition, we requested preliminary comments on the growth allocation factors from our state agency commission members, and the preliminary comments are also included in your staff report. So the proposed growth allocation is consistent with the underlying town center district zoning and is consistent with several goals in the comp plan, including promoting infill development and providing public access to tidal waters. The project will have an economic benefit because it will extend a public water main from the Gibson's Grant community entrance to the property, a distance of approximately 925 feet. And the proposed self-storage facility will increase tax revenue. So per factor 7, the Commission must consider environmental impacts associated with wastewater and stormwater management practices and wastewater and stormwater discharges to tidal waters, tidal wetlands, and tributary streams. The environmental site design for the property proposes 2 micro-bioretention facilities to treat runoff from the entry drive, parking lot, and cul-de-sac, and 1 submerged gravel wetland to treat runoff from the self-storage facilities roof. As noted earlier, the proposed stormwater management will exceed the water quality protection goals of the Critical Area Commission's 10% pollutant removal requirement. Based on the conceptual site plan, the submerged gravel wetland is located partially within the floodplain. In preliminary comments, DNR noted that the proposed stormwater management plan meets ESD requirements. They recommended a robust maintenance plan to ensure plant survival over time, given that the vegetation in both the microbial retentions and the submerged gravel wetland provide the bulk of the nutrient reduction value in these VMPs. For per factor 8, the Commission must consider environmental impacts associated with location in the coastal hazard area or an increased risk of severe flooding attributable to the proposed development. The county reviewed the project using the Queen Anne's County sea level rise and coastal vulnerability information. A portion of the proposed development envelope falls within scenario 2, which is the year 2100 with projected sea level rise of 4 feet, and scenario 3, which is the year 2050 with a projected sea level rise of 2 feet with storm surge. The county acknowledges that the proposed building must meet all county and FEMA floodplain requirements. Based on the existing topography, the county anticipates that the building's finished floor elevation will be 9 feet. This will exceed the required flood protection elevation of 7 feet, which is 2 feet above the base flood elevation of 5 feet. Based on the conceptual site plan, a portion of the proposed building is located within the floodplain and therefore must comply with the county's floodplain ordinance. So for this factor, DNR noted that while the project proposes no mitigation, if the new designation of IDA proceeds, the project will fill a portion of the floodplain and disturb 1.4 acres of woodland. Therefore, mitigation to reduce impacts and potential flood risk is encouraged. Further, the project location is subject to the impacts of sea level rise. Such impacts typically include increased coastal erosion, pollution, storm damage, and flooding. These impacts pose threats to coastal roads, bridges, jetties, breakwaters, docks, and waterfront property. DNR notes that the Commission may wish to have the applicant consider additional measures, planting, or mitigation to address the potential threats prompted by these impacts. Maryland Department of Planning noted that the sea level rise vulnerability maps indicate that parcels 287, 351, and 352 are impacted by 2 to 5 foot sea level rise inundation, and parcels 287 and 351 are vulnerable to category 1 through 4 storm surge. All 3 of the parcels are partially located within the floodplain. To address these environmental risks, proposed development will need to comply with county floodplain regulations and incorporate appropriate and required flood-proofing measures into the construction. So again, I've summarized the state agency commission members who provided comments for this project here. We've already discussed several of them, but I'm just going to review them briefly. DNR noted that the portions of the project are located in or adjacent to a targeted ecological area, which are lands identified by DNR as the most ecologically valuable in the state. Development of these areas in this growth allocation where there are floodplain and climate vulnerabilities may prevent inland migration of habitats that would provide resilience benefits. DNR recommended that the vegetation and the stormwater management facilities have a robust maintenance plan to ensure plant survival, and that the Commission consider mitigation for the forest clearing and floodplain impacts. NDE found the proposal to be consistent with the county's comp plan in some areas and not consistent in others. NDP noted that the project will impact 0.23 acres of the 25-foot non-tidal wetland buffer and 0.17 acres of the 100-year floodplain, and that the project will need to be in compliance with the county's floodplain ordinance. So a number of citizens have attended public meetings for this growth allocation request and submitted comments. The Queen Anne's County Planning Commission met on November 10, 2022, and the agenda included the armored storage growth allocation request. Several citizens provided comments. Most were opposed to the project for a variety of reasons, including the forest removal, views from the Cross Island Trail, biodiversity concerns, etc. And one citizen spoke in favor of the project. It was also noted that 6 emails were submitted to the county, 5 opposed the project, and 1 was in favor. The Queen Anne's County Commissioners held a public hearing for this growth allocation request in January of this year. At the meeting, 17 citizens provided comments. 13 opposed the project, and 4, including the applicant, were in favor of the project. In addition, the county received 30 emails under the county commissioner's press and public comment inbox. 16 emails opposed the project and 14 supported the project. The county commissioners and county administrators inbox received 49 emails, with 47 emails opposing the project and 2 supporting the project. The record was left open until the next meeting for any additional comments, and a total of 24 emails were received after the meeting, and all these emails opposed the project. Because this proposed growth allocation meets the required standards for new IDAs under critical area law and is in accordance with the state and local regulations, Commission staff recommend concurrence with the chairman's determination that the growth allocation be processed for realignment to the county's critical area program. Furthermore, staff recommends that the chairman approve the growth allocation shown on the site plan and accompanying materials accepted by commission staff with the following conditions. So the recommended conditions are listed on this slide and the next, and on pages 12 to 13 of your staff report. So condition 1 is mitigation for clearing forest and developed woodlands shall be required at a 1-to-1 ratio. The county shall submit a proposal for meeting this mitigation requirement within 90 days of critical area commission approval. Okay, before I read condition 2, I want to explain why we're recommending this condition. One of the stormwater management facilities, as we've discussed, the submerged gravel wetland, is located partially within the floodplain, and it is still to be determined how the site will meet the county's floodplain requirements. Therefore, we're recommending this condition. So condition 2 is to ensure the proposed stormwater management meets the 10% pollutant reduction requirement after the floodplain approval is finalized. The county shall submit the proposed stormwater management plan and 10% pollutant reduction calculations to commission staff for review and approval. Condition 3, within 60 days of the date of commission approval, a draft declaration of deed restriction that protects the remaining acreage on resulting parcel 351 from future development shall be submitted to commission staff for review and approval. The deed restriction must specify that no future development will be allowed on the remaining acreage, including any stormwater management facilities. The deed restriction must also specify that the restrictive covenant runs with the land and is perpetual. And condition 4, prior to the county's final approval of the lot consolidation of the subject parcels, the county shall submit the required findings under COMAR 27010208 to commission staff. So thank you for your attention, and I'll now turn it over to the program subcommittee chair for discussion and any questions you may have.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
This application, as Susan noted, is being treated as a refinement, and generally we do not entertain public comment or presentations as part of that process. But due to the complexity of this project, we have allotted time for about 5 minutes for a community member to speak, as well as the applicant will also be allotted that time. So at this point in time, Mr. Zillick, I believe, is prepared to provide comments.
Thank you. My name is Bob Zillick.
Mr. Zillick,
Yeah.
sorry, if you would like to come over, so you're not speaking
Sure.
to the back of the committee.
Chairman Fisher, and I know this, you're probably your first, in the future, and this is my last meeting, but after 8 years of sitting here, it would be very helpful to take this whole program group and put us over there,
Agreed.
and that way we can see all the people who want to present. Sorry.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Bob Zillick, and I live in Graysonville, Maryland. And I'm here today really to share concerns, some of the concerns our community had expressed during the Queen Anne's County critical area review of this project. If you're familiar with Kent Narrows, you already know sort of the unique geography that Kent Narrows has. The Route 50 freeway basically serves as a causeway-like corridor that connects Kent Narrows east and west through tidal marshes on either side. It is in this extremely sensitive critical area that the applicant is seeking its infill, non-adjacency, intense development area to build a 300-foot long self-storage warehouse. Our community asks, is this causeway corridor really the right place for this type of intense development? One of the primary concerns is that the precedent this project sets for further infill commercial intense development projects. Kent Island has a large designated growth area all along Route 50, with significant portions being in the critical area. The critical areas adjacent to and extending out of Kent Narrows, both east to Graysonville and west to Chester, which is where this site is proposed, are especially desirable for commercial development, being adjacent to Kent Narrows. This request is the second of two that have been submitted to the planning department in the past several years. The first was Waterfront Marine, which was put on hold due to MDE permitting issues. The large critical area projects like Four Seasons Retirement Community in Queen Anne's County takes many years for approval and received a lot of public attention and engagement along the way. However, these small infill projects like this one can sort of slip under the radar, and they really go relatively unnoticed until the public sees the construction. The developer purchased their properties knowing the critical area limitations and has aggressively worked to get approval to get their public self-storage project through. In 2021, recognizing the proposal did not meet existing county zoning restrictions, public self-storage mini warehouses are not permitted in the town center district, which is where this is being built. They pursued and successfully obtained a new land use definition. So they created a new land use definition called self-storage interior access only, which is not the same apparently as a mini warehouse. Even though the definitions are exactly the same except for a phrase inserted that says interior access only with hallways, which now permits it in the TC district. During the developer's zoning change request, there was no mention of the potential building scale or critical area impacts. The county commissioners had no comments or any questions prior to the unanimous vote for approval during the public hearing, nor did the public make any comments. Following the successful zoning change, the developer submitted a critical area intense development request to the planning department and commissioners, which required a public hearing to review the building, the site drawings, and most importantly, the critical area impacts. At this point, the public became aware and engaged. Approximately 100 citizens spoke up at the hearing and submitted emails and letters voicing their opposition during the county commissioner critical area public hearing. The county commissioners approved the project 4-1 and have referred it to you all for approval. Our concern is that this project scale, 3 stories tall, 300 feet long, it says 4 stories, but they've modified it, I believe. It's 2.8 acres IDA, requiring 1.4 acres of tree removal, is out of character with the Chester community plan. It is inappropriate for such an environmentally sensitive area in Kent Narrows. The proposed facility scale is conceptually similar to 3 mini warehouses stacked on top of each other and 300 feet long, which again, mini warehouses aren't permitted. The county supported, I skipped a part here. There are 2 better suited industrial parks on Kent Island that are only miles away from the proposed site. The county supported the expansion of these industrial parks in their last 2 IDA submissions, being 2019 and 2016, to encourage light industrial use there. The facility is partially located in the floodplain, as mentioned, requires some fill and has vulnerabilities to sea level rise projections. In addition, it is adjacent to a target ecological area. The project is also not consistent with several comprehensive plan goals, as stated in the staff report, page 7. And most importantly, is counter to the 2022 plan's guiding principle, which is to sustain Queen Anne's County as a good steward by preserving and protecting the Chesapeake Bay and its tributaries. It's page 2 of the 400-page report. The plan under the Environmental Resource Strategy 2.5 specifically states, continue to implement the Chesapeake Bay Critical Area Program to minimize adverse impacts and effects of human activities on water quality, natural habitat, and allow for development in a sensitive manner. In closing, our community has hoped the Critical Area Commission as a state agency would provide another opportunity to inform the public on this project and its environmental impacts. The request, however, was submitted as a refinement, thus denying an opportunity for the community to be engaged in the CSC process with a local public hearing, although obviously I appreciate you listening to it today. We would appreciate your reconsideration of that refinement decision in light of the extent of concern already expressed by our local community. A more inclusive public hearing process by the CAC where all parties are fully informed and the best solutions achieved. Thank you for allowing me to speak today, and if you have any questions, just let me know. Thank you.
Anything else? County, would you like to speak?
I didn't know if you wanted to ask, you said something about the applicants. As
You
well.
guys are
Go.
We're gonna let you speak.
Where's this best
You're
place?
good, yeah.
Okay.
All right, I'll just address a couple of things. The commissioners did send an approval for this growth allocation. If it is approved here today, it will come back to the county commissioners for their ultimate approval. That's just the way our process works. But as well, they did place several conditions on that approval. One was to basically remove one of the floors. I know Susan mentioned it's a 4-story. The county commissioners said, indicated it has to be a 3-story building. As well, there was other conditions as well. One was to address stormwater management in order that there has to be tested for effectiveness on a regular basis and in accordance with testing methods approved by the county and the Maryland Department of the Environment. So I know you suggested about further stormwater management practices, so the commissioners have kind of in place that already in our conditions as well. And then on the use of the self-storage facility itself, this proposal did include a text amendment back in 2021. At that point, that was when the self-storage facility, indoor access only was added to the county code. It is separate from a warehouse. This use is not a warehouse by definition. A warehouse is specifically for a business or for an operation. This is obviously for the storage of goods for a private property owner. So the definition is different, they're not the same. As well, I'd like to point out that and going through that text amendment process, we don't necessarily indicate a specific project. We don't talk about particular projects when a text amendment is being proposed. It's strictly just the use that's being proposed and the district that it is being proposed in. So it's not necessarily that this project would have came up during that text amendment process. So I just reiterate that the commissioners did send a favorable approval. Also, the planning commission did as well, but the county commissioners added several conditions. Were they weren't in the report, were they, the conditions from the commissioners? Okay, well, let me run through them vaguely. They have to basically dedicate that 1.464, which is parcel 287 that basically Susan showed on the screen. That has to be dedicated to the county for recreational use. I discussed the one about stormwater. They have to deed restrict the 5.987 acres that basically are the remainder of that parcel after the development is proposed, which is the RCA, remainder LDA. No disturbance to non-tidal wetlands. They're not impact any habitat protection areas. There is some minimal impact to the non-tidal wetlands. They do have to provide a fence to the adjacent property owner. That was basically the property owner came in and discussed that with the planning commission, and the planning commission actually suggested that recommendation. They also have to meet with DPW and State Highway in regards to the overpass of Shamrock Road that could be constructed in the future. That overpass that kind of separates the parcels. There's no direct plans for that to be constructed, but in order, obviously, down the road for that to be constructed, there's a reason to have that conversation now with the property owner. They have to reduce the building by 1 floor, which would be 3 floors, and also look at the architecture of the building. Also look at the view shed from 5301 and how the landscaping that is existing, and kind of incorporate the existing landscaping and add additional. Look at the Cross Island Trail. As some of you may know, that's our trail does run basically go around that parcel. They need to look at that and how, if there is additional traffic, how to address that and make it safe. And then in areas where there's hard pavement proposed, just investigate permeable pavers, so any of the parking locations. So with that, that would increase their stormwater management practices as well. So, do you have any questions about
Tell me,
that?
I didn't get your name or capacity.
Stephanie Jones, I'm the principal planner for Queen Anne's County, sorry.
Okay, tell me, is this a development district does yours?
Yeah, the town center is a commercial district.
Okay, and it has sewer, but not
Yes.
water yet?
So this site, it is in a W1 in the water and sewer plan, but there's no, I'm sorry, it's a W2 in the water and sewer map, but there's no amendment needed in order for it to get water.
It's ready to go in development's cost?
Yeah, they'll put the line in.
Well, tell me, do you have a plan for infill? Do you have any, because what the gentleman said is that this wasn't an allowable use, and now the county's changed it via this internal storage versus, I guess, external storage. And do you have any other, do you have regulations on, so they can protect against additional things that they wouldn't like to see there?
As in the use itself?
Yes, do
Or
you have restrictions that would protect against certain kinds of uses going there that maybe the constituency wouldn't like?
In that exact location?
Well, or an infill location?
In infill, basically it is the commercial use, there are other permitted uses in that, district. It is, very much along our 5301 corridor, it is basically one of the highest commercial districts in the county. So if you are on the 5301 route, you will see, that is what the TC and also the, urban commercial district is.
When the project first came in, I'm assuming you have like a technical evaluation committee that looks at the initial project to see how it fits
Yeah.
prior to it going before the planning commission. And my question to you would be, was there any recommendation that they consider the storage facilities where they're allowed, where there seems to be, a gentleman referenced close
For
by?
the text amendment specifically?
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, was Nashville LLC, whatever the group is, recommended to locate in the storage area first and not just in?
No, because it was a citizen-sponsored text amendment. The county has a 10-day window every year where a citizen can submit basically a text amendment to any part of the code. And through that, they go through the process and basically ends up with the commissioner approval. But that also includes a planning commission recommendation. We review it, provide suggestions, do a staff report to the planning commission as well for the commissioners. But it comes down to their decision for the text amendment.
And the commissioners approved it for you?
Yeah, they did.
Well, I'm sorry to ask you so many questions.
It's
but
okay.
I've been on the planning commission, the board of appeals, and the
Nope, it's
county
okay.
commission, so. All right, thank you.
I have a quick, how wide of an area do you advertise for comments? I mean, what area, within what distance of this project?
So the property gets posted, the neighbors also get a letter.
Within what distance from?
Contiguous, typically.
Adjacency is how it gets.
Contiguous usually.
Because there's overwhelming opposition to this.
Right, but the adjacent property owners all get notified and the property gets posted. Also, the public hearings go into the paper, which are also posted online for the county.
Was the text amendment that was voted on 4-1 by the prior group of county commissioners or the current group?
All of our, the text amendment would have been our previous county commissioners, but there was only one county commissioner, one different between our old set of commissioners and our existing county commissioners. The text amendment is separate from the growth allocation process. So which process are you referring to with your question?
Whatever the county commissioners would be voting for.
They vote on both. So they voted on the text amendment
Right.
in 2021, and then they voted on the growth allocation in the beginning of the year. And then both of those are public hearings, both of those proposals, and both of them are at county commissioner meetings where property owners can submit questions, comments.
What were the reasons cited for the no vote of the county commissioners? It was 4-1 mentioned here in the write-up. What was the reason for the no?
I don't specifically know the answer for the no. My
I can
thoughts.
actually answer that because I asked Chris why he said no.
Oh, okay.
Was at the meeting.
Well, come on up here, please. Come identify
Come where
yourself.
we can
Is that
see you.
okay? Sorry.
Is that I mean, we don't have confirmation from him, so, and Amy may be able to.
This is just a
I'm
tough.
Amy Bordock, I'm the planning director with Queen Anne's County. I wanted to make one comment about public notice, because I know that's an area of concern. In addition to the standard policies of posting a property, putting notice in a newspaper and online, because people don't read newspapers like they once did, and notifying adjacent property owners, we have a robust Facebook page and social media specialist, and we have put forward all of our notices in those formats, which is why we have received so many comments. So there, as much as it is possible for the planning commission and county commissioners to get the word out and solicit public input, that was certainly managed with this project and all projects. I'd say within the last year, we have made it a matter of policy to coordinate with our media specialists to make sure that we're meeting the evolution of how notice should be given for projects. We also have evolved to include all of the meeting materials online so that everything is accessible to the public when our agendas are posted. So I just wanted to clarify that point. The second point I just wanted to make is that I'm not sure that it's appropriate for a member of the public to represent a county commissioner vote. But I'll leave that to legal counsel to decide. Because I'm just looking through my notes from that meeting, and I'm not sure that I wrote it down, but if you give me a minute, I'll check, because we do have our files. But I'm just not sure that representing a county commissioner vote should be.
Well, I think it may be more appropriate to use a county employee to maybe surmise that. But I think your point about notice is well taken, and the fact that you had over 100 people reply that didn't like it, it would seem to be reasonable to think that people knew about it, you know.
Agreed.
I still don't understand why you're allowing it, though, when it's not allowed. Well, it just seems like you made an exception for this particular piece.
No. So there are legal processes that are embedded in our code. And an application for a text amendment is one of those processes. So this application for text amendment that the applicant put forward had to be vetted for consistency with other uses in that district. So the use as proposed was not found to be inconsistent with other permitted uses in that district. It was a very nuanced addition in terms of looking at storage facilities for internal access. So it wasn't a far cry from the uses that are already permitted in our growth area in this case. Likewise, pursuing growth allocation is another legal option which may or may not have been successful, and the text amendment may or may not have been successful. But we're here today because of those legal avenues that citizens have and developers have, and that vetting process that our planning commission and county commissioners are in the position to recommend or favorably review or not. But if you give me a minute, I'll check my notes to see if I can find Commissioner Margarino's reason for his vote.
Just speak.
My memory is that he didn't give one publicly.
I don't remember him stating any
Right.
specific
I mean, my memory is that he voted in opposition but did not speak publicly. So I would be, if he didn't make a comment on the record, I would be a little concerned about a secondhand comment being made in a hearing like this.
For the 1.4 acres of tree clearing, I see the staff recommendation to mitigate. Was that proposal part of the public comment and hearing where the community knew that that was a potential? Or that's come after the fact?
That is our recommended condition
Okay.
on this approval. Yeah, I can't speak.
So we don't know if the community would feel differently in terms of opposition level, that knowing that some of that clearing would be replaced? That hasn't been discussed publicly yet.
And I think that would be favorable.
Sure. And the county then hasn't put together a plan of where that mitigation is going to occur, you know, relative to that site or elsewhere in the county.
Yeah, we would work with the applicant
Okay.
to, there's a if that condition is put forward, there's a 90-day.
Yeah, I just didn't know if y'all had had some conversations. Okay.
So at this time, it can't be confirmed that if a 1-to-1 mitigation on the 1.4 acres is required, it cannot be confirmed if that will occur on site.
Yeah, will that happen on site?
Can you pull up the site by any chance? So this site is pretty much heavily established already. except for the areas that obviously growth allocation is not gonna be awarded. So everywhere outside of that yellow dashed line, that area is gonna be deed restricted, and no further development. And that was according to a condition that has been suggested for you all to place on this, that no further development will take place there. And the county has also indicated, the commissioners have indicated that that area should only allow passive recreation, within that.
Have you identified mitigation areas?
No, there has not been an area identified. The applicant might be able to put some on that parcel, but they would not be able to put all 1.4 acres on that.
Well, I mean, wouldn't it be prudent to have that identified prior to approving this?
This was a condition that was suggested by the commission.
Okay.
Not to change, we just.
And it's not required standard in the IDA.
Okay.
So without
You
growth,
don't,
yeah.
the county doesn't require.
Without growth allocation, COMAR does not require mitigation for tree removal in the IDA. This would be something additional per the award of growth allocation.
We just had a question here about the existing dwellings on site. So just to clarify, these dwellings here will be removed. I think there are 2 dwellings here. This dwelling will remain. This is a,
They're residential though.
yes.
That's where the fence is gonna be placed, that I said that one of the conditions for the county commissioner approval was.
Interesting.
Susan, tell me, you talked about 5 feet, 7 feet, 9 feet. Will this flood in a 100-year storm? Will this facility flood?
So the mapped 100 so the
I mean, that's what I couldn't
100
understand.
year floodplain is-
You're recommending mitigation.
So it's right here, so this is the map 100-year floodplain. It's difficult to see this X line here, that's the map. So this portion of the proposed building here, and then a good portion of the submerged gravel wetlands located within the 100-year floodplain.
So it
on the
could
map.
flood.
That's what the floodplain maps indicate. The chance of flooding is a 1% chance, that's what the 100 flood. 100
Doesn't that
year
make
floodplain
sense not to
defines
locate it there?
as.
But the base floor's higher? Is that what you said?
So the
I
base
know,
flood
that's what she was
elevation
saying.
here is 5 feet, so the county floodplain ordinance is 2 feet above base flood elevation, so that's 7 feet, it has to be raised 7 feet. That portion of the building has to be raised 7 feet. I think in the county's materials that was submitted, it said something about 9 feet, so I mean, you can speak to that more, but.
Yeah, just to clarify, throughout the state, and really in most states in the country, there is no prohibition on construction in a mapped floodplain. But there are requirements and minimum standards that must be met for any construction in the floodplain. And in this case, the entire structure is not located within, but if a square foot of your structure is located within a mapped floodplain, you have to meet floodplain requirements. So, and that's the case here. There's a portion located within the floodplain. I believe the floodplain here is floodplain level 5, elevation 5. So 2 feet above is where the first floor and electrical equipment has to be 3 feet above, and you have to have flood vents. But in this case, they are going to elevate 2 feet above that. So they're exceeding the minimum floodplain standard in terms of how that structure will be constructed. There should not be damage, and if there is inundation, then that line isn't a magic line where flooding will stop right where that map line is. So of course there would be some inundation beyond, but there should be adequate flood vents and elevation to allow those flood waters to pass through and not cause a hydrologic impact on adjacent properties. And that's the point of meeting the floodplain standard.
Are the 2 other industrial sites that we heard about this morning, are they in the critical area?
Yes.
They both are. And so there'd be significant issues associated with them if they were trying to expand of the warehouses in those alternative sites?
I believe the answer is yes, and I believe that the properties that were mentioned also received growth allocation over the last couple of years.
In regards to, you asked about the stormwater being placed in the floodplain, I think, as well. This goes back to a condition that the commissioners did place on this approval. is the fact that the stormwater facilities have to be tested for effectiveness on a regular basis. So they will be, going out and inspecting that effectiveness of the stormwater facility. So there will be, some management obviously of it, if it is flooded or not, or if it is meeting the tests that it needs to, in order to treat the stormwater.
This is already in a very highly commercialized area now. What impact does additional traffic have? Has anyone looked at the traffic implications here along this corridor by adding these warehouses?
So the access is not directly off of 50 or 301, it's a county road, Piney Creek Road. There is obviously impact to traffic, but nothing drastic. They did do a kind of an impact study that was the Planning Commission's technical comments when they went through the Planning Commission approval, and did not impact any of the other traffic in that area.
And an additional note is that in the county's transportation plan, there's a long-term goal to request State Highway to construct an overpass where you see Shamrock Road. And the technical committee has worked with the applicant to discuss and to give an additional right-of-way in the event that an overpass is constructed. So addressing current and future transportation needs was definitely a part of the review of this application.
Okay.
Do we have any more questions?
I have one. This may be a question for Susan, it may be you guys. So the growth allocation request from LDA to IDA is being requested because this is a new commercial use or because they couldn't meet the lot coverage limitations?
They couldn't meet the lot coverage limitations.
So they could make it smaller.
The 15, if it was to stay LDA, it would have to be 15%, which would include obviously the parking, sidewalks, the building, everything would have to meet the 15% requirement.
Okay.
Of only the LDA portion
Right.
of that site.
And somewhat to that point, the commissioners were concerned about the bulk of this development and did conditionally approve reducing the height and the bulk of that building by a story. It wasn't so much the footprint that was of concern, but it was sort of the bulk of that structure where it is located.
So they reduced, the plans that we have said 4 stories, but the commissioners said 3. So the amount of parking that's required right now, is that for 4 stories? Would that change at all? Could that be minimized?
The parking,
Less lot coverage?
it goes back.
Check the staff report, the parking standard.
Yeah.
While they're looking for that, Susan,
Yes.
they have to do an alternative allocation because the IDA isn't going to be 20 acres.
Right.
How often do people utilize that provision? Is that pretty common?
Can you repeat your Back in 2014,
Yes.
the county, submitted and the commission did approve that alternative
For
standard.
just Queen Anne?
Each county has
Has its own way.
can do that, so some counties have included an alternative provision for that, and some counties haven't. Queen Anne's County did in 2014, so that new IDA can be less than 20 acres because it meets those requirements.
Those exceptions, yeah.
Have you seen it utilized a lot?
That's what, yeah.
Since I've been here for 4 years, I think this is maybe the second one I've seen in Queen Anne's County.
I was asking, since this is isolated, yeah.
Thank you.
And in their standards, is it also that you don't have to be adjacent to an IDA for a new IDA?
That would be part of it.
Okay. That is part of their alternative standards. Okay.
So the engineer for the applicant is here, and if he's prepared and he could address parking. We don't have that
Calculations.
aspect of the calculations in our staff report with us right now.
We need to see if we get a motion here. That's good.
As far as the lot, I know at least with the submittal from the county, the lot coverage, in the staff report is, I think what was submitted from the county, as far as I know, so the footprint of the building, I believe, is the same, and then I can't speak if it was minimized or not, but the numbers in the staff report should match what was submitted, I think, but.
Yeah, the lot coverage wouldn't change, and I don't suspect that the parking would be reduced significantly or would reduce the need for this request. I don't.
What's the total proposed lot coverage? Do you know that off the top of your head, or maybe the?
Yeah, I have to pull up the plan.
Okay.
Do you have it in your staff report?
Do you want to speak to the business?
Bishop?
Okay, that's just
The building, yeah, that's just,
1.46 acres.
1.46 acres.
Right. Just enterprise zone in their plans. Maybe I'm getting too much from it.
Gain so much from the county.
There's anything agricultural about this.
Do you wanna, the parking question, could you raise that again for?
I'm sorry, let's go ahead.
So Kevin Sharon with DMS and Associates, one of the civil engineers for the project. To address the parking question, the original parking calculations were based on the 4 stories at 156,000 square feet. For this type of facility, it's 1 space for every 6,000 square feet, so the required was 26. And with the removal of 1 floor, we would go down to 20 for the building.
Sure.
Would that reduction pull you out of the non-starter
Probably not, because the buffer is for the turnaround area for emergency vehicles and cars with trailers.
My name is Joseph Stevens. I'm the attorney for the project. I represent both the landowner and the end user in the growth allocation request. And this is just a few things I want to clarify. One is that the use is absolutely permitted in the underlying zone. There was no special exception, special approval, or anything given to the use. Storage facilities in Queen Anne's County for decades in this zone, this town center zone, was allowed. In the early 2000s, there was kind of a proliferation of storage facilities, outdoor mini warehouses in the zone, and the commissioners decided that, look, we don't want any more of them in the zone, so they zoned them out. We did an amendment, took them out. My client, in contemplation of doing an indoor storage facility, said, well, we understand you don't want these mini storages everywhere, but how about if we were to do something solely indoor, climate control, because there's a real market for it, and it's not the same visual impact as mini storage. And they submitted an amendment that went from the planning commission to the county commissioners, had 2 public hearings, and it was approved. It's a permitted use in the underlying zone. Other uses in that zone include housing at 10 units per acre, include warehouses, truck terminals, McDonald's, shopping centers. The town center zone is the most intensive zone that the county has. It's their growth area zone. And you can see why on this aerial photo. This is Route 50. The property is adjacent to Route 50 and adjacent to a storage facility for boats. It is also just south of the Gibson's Grant community. This is all community open space. And as you move further down the road or towards the Kent Narrows, you know that the area is a growth area. It has public sewer, and most of it has public water, although where it doesn't have public water, it's immediately available, as was already testified to.
Let me interrupt you for a second. You're saying the adjacent property is already a storage unit, storage facility?
It's boats.
Arena storage.
Oh, boat storage.
It's boat storage and repair.
All right, I get it.
Sales, storage, repair. There's vacant houses on the property that exist right now where it would be, and the neighbor to the north is a neighbor that our client has worked very diligently with to make concessions and work with him regarding setbacks and buffering and fencing and a number of things, so that the neighbor now is satisfied with the architecture, so the neighbor is satisfied with the proposal. So that's the real neighbor that's impacted. Many people who spoke at the public hearing spoke in regards to having a look at it from the Cross Island Trail, and as you can see, there aren't any very many neighbors that are near there, except for the gentleman who we work with, that live near the facility, except for Gibson's Grant, which is completely, on the other side of a buffer. So I needed to make that point. The other point I want to make is that this site has been in the growth area for the county since the 1960s. As the county did its first zoning, it had what was known as R3 zoning, which was 10 units per acre. And then it went to a commercial zone in the 1980s. E, which is business, and then it went to urban commercial, and then it went to town center about 15 years ago. And it's been in that zone, which allows a huge amount of uses that are commercial, mixed use, and residential in nature. So that's what that would be. It has been determined to be consistent with the comp plan, completely up and down, the stairway, so to speak. And it's for those reasons that staff has not objected to the proposal, that the planning commission has made favorable recommendations, and that the county commissioners have asked for growth allocation on this site. And it is a county program, and the county implements the programs clearly with your all oversight. But this is an area that the commissioners have determined should have some growth. And in regards to the commercial use, they see that as a good use. It doesn't use much sewer, and I'm sure you've heard in the past that Queen Anne's County doesn't have much sewer. It provides for jobs. It provides an economic impact. It has no traffic impacts. We've done a traffic analysis, a preliminary analysis. And this doesn't even meet the warrants to have to do a traffic adequate public facility study, because it's spread out over the day. There's no peak hour, running in here and running out, so to speak. So the commissioners have determined that that's an appropriate use. The real issues, I think, go down to the critical area issues in regards to the mitigation that you all want to see, which the applicant certainly is agreeable to, and will try to do as much as, working with staff on site. Obviously, we don't have that mitigation at this point because we're just seeing the condition, but we do have to have another public hearing locally. County commissioners have to have another public hearing before this gets finally approved by them, and then we have to have another meeting at the planning commission for the site plan. So this is not over by any stretch, and the public has opportunity to comment. And the public has commented, which resulted in the county commissioners saying, because they heard most of the comments, and most of the comments that they considered to be valuable comments dealt with the bulk of the building. And the county commissioners, it's a significant impact to go ahead and reduce that by those, by some 25%. So with that said, I
wanted to talk about the floodplain, about the elevations.
Unfortunately, we've maxed out our 5 minutes.
Okay.
So, I'm going to turn it back to the committee now and see if we have any additional questions.
Thank you.
Sure.
This really goes back to the planning board. Concern that I have is the number of negative comments that came in. I'd like to know how many were discrete and how many were duplicate. As many times if there's multiple Facebook and other vehicles, the same person will send a comment to all 3 or 4 opportunities. And so how many of these negative comments were from distinct individuals as opposed to those who might have sent multiple emails?
I would like to, I'm sorry to interrupt, but a number of comments on emails came in and thought it was RCA going to IDA. That was in a vast majority of the emails that came in, and that just was inaccurate. I'm sorry, I had to clarify that.
Yeah,
I don't remember that name.
we don't see the county's comments that happen locally. So we don't get copies of all of those, but what we do have is, the summary, as Susan mentioned, in terms of what was received, and you're right, many of them could have been. But I think the gist of the comments are what Susan tried to summarize in the staff report in regards to, the visual impacts, some about the environmental impacts, is sort of what we tried to put in the staff report for your consideration.
Kate, would I be wrong in thinking that some of the issues that we discussed could be handled in the next phase by the county commissioners at that time or through the planning commission? What we're looking at right now, what Chairman Fisher decided upon is with is it in compliance within the critical area and what we're going to do to mitigate that?
So what you are doing is 2 things. The chair determined that the process could be handled as a refinement. That means The decision ultimately would be made by the chair. After the meeting this afternoon, the chair has up to 10 working days to make a decision. The decision, we look to what's the requirements in the law and the regulations, and consistency with the purposes, policies, goals of the critical area law and regs. And then there are 4 options for that decision. It's approve, deny, approve with conditions, or return it for changes to be made. Queen Anne's County does have a unique process. Most counties, once the action comes to the commission, it is the final. Queen Anne's County sends they have in their program the ability to send in a conceptual. Whatever the decision would be of this body would go back if there were conditions attached to that. The county's obligated to apply those conditions, and so they would get tacked on at the next consideration by the county commissioners for a final approval. So that's how the county process works. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, it does, thank you.
Sure.
Is there any more discussion? Do we have a motion for consideration? Right, so as proposed, staff has, the staff recommendation is that to concur with the determination of the chair's determination that this be treated as a refinement, as well as the 4 conditions that are included.
I would motion
Alicia?
for, I'm gonna try and repeat your words,
Okay,
to accept the proposal as a refinement
that's correct.
with the 4 conditions staff recommended as part of that approval.
We have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'm gonna make a couple of comments here that
Okay.
you're probably gonna hear for the next however long I'm on here. I'm very conflicted here because as a county commissioner, I don't want to appear, to go against decisions that were made by my fellow county commissioners in an adjoining county, but I've seen this movie many times. Someone comes in, buys a piece of land, then decides they're gonna do it, go through the process to get things approved. Adjoining homeowners are pacified. We go through this process. So I just wanted to mention that I take very strongly the decisions that are made by county commissioners within their own counties. But I have some concerns about this. If it's going to come back to them, I'm fine with doing that. That's the thing that's gonna make me probably look favorable.
And Kate, you did say it's gonna go back, correct?
Yes. To the county, yes, back to the county commissioners.
I would have to agree with what Larry just said. Knowing that it's going to come back gives me some comfort level. Where if it didn't come back around, I'd probably be more negative.
When you say come back, we're meaning it's going to the county commissioners. It does not come back to the critical area commission.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion, comment?
As a commissioner too, I definitely respect commissioners who make decisions for their county. As a commissioner from another county, it's not my prerogative or my view to make a judgment on theirs, but I'll say this. There seems to be some T's that haven't been crossed and some I's that haven't been dotted. So I'm going to vote against this. Now, if it goes forward, it goes forward. But I just think that, I don't think enough homework's been done.
Any other discussion or comment?
Can I just get a clarifying?
Sure, Alicia.
The mitigation, we're not going to see that proposal. They will have to do one, but that won't come to the
It goes to
commission.
staff.
It would come back to staff.
Okay, but not for our approval to, Got it, thank you.
But you could, you could ask for.
We would request it, okay.
Yeah.
I would request it.
Madam Chair, call for the vote.
When you said ask for it, would we have to change the condition to ask for it?
Yes, we would have to change the condition, and I also meant that you could just ask for a report out
Or-
as well, like
okay.
if you didn't want to change the condition.
Okay. So Alicia, are you suggesting you want to change the condition or?
Is that an option? Oh, so can I put a new motion on the table?
I think is that the spot we're at, or do we have to call for?
How does this work?
You have to amend your
Yeah, you would
motion,
have to
and then you have
amend
to get a second to your amendment.
Okay, so I'm gonna amend my motion to proceed with this as a refinement as proposed, but for the 4 conditions that the staff recommends, amend recommendation number 1, that the mitigation plan be brought back to the programs committee for review and approval. Is that appropriate?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I think with that recommendation, it's much more favorable to, that way we do see it again.
Yeah, I'd like to know.
I think that's a good choice.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Susan. And thank you to everyone who helped with
Alicia,
that presentation.
I say, let's see where these trees are going. That's the one who said stone.
Go back across again.
Hold out.
So next on our agenda, we have 2 items. The first, or both for Ocean City and both being presented by Kate. I'll give her a second to get settled back in here, but the first one is for the town of Ocean City, the critical area boundary map update.
Okay, so both Charles County are pulled out.
yeah.
That's correct. Yeah.
That was one of the longest discussions we've had.
I tell you what, that was but you know, we've seen a lot of this stuff. And then the commission comes back, she might get some money on property tax. Gotta get a bigger piece of property. I mean, we see it all the time down there.
Kate, you're up. Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. I knew there was a conversation. I didn't want to interrupt anything that was going on. Good morning. Is it still morning? Yes. Okay. Good morning. My name is Kate Duran. I am here to present on the Ocean City mapping update, to be followed immediately by the Ocean City text amendment that is also related to the Ocean City mapping update. So, this project, as stated, is Ocean City. Here's Worcester County. There's Ocean City. Here's a closer look at Ocean City along the Atlantic coastal base. So we've been going through a lot of mapping updates with you guys. In July 2012, Commission adopted regulations that address the types of source documents used for our maps. They were originally based off of the statewide wetland map, and we changed that so that they are now based off of updated critical area maps. So the Commission staff has worked with the town of Ocean City, the Maryland Department of Natural Resources, the Maryland Department of Environment, and Eastern Shore Regional GIS Cooperative to develop the updated critical area maps for the town. The draft maps were vetted. They were presented at several public meetings in town, and they were delivered to the town for public comment and local approval. You can see here, sorry, too fast, wrong button. Let's try that again. They were approved by resolution 2023-03 on March 6th from the town council. All IDA, that's what the red signifies. Just to give you a little closer view, this is the northern end of Ocean City, followed by the southern end of Ocean City. There were no gains or losses. The entire town was incorporated into the critical area during their comp review in 2010. So staff recommends that the mapping update was completed in accordance with state law and Comar 270111. Therefore, we recommend the commission concur with the chair's determination that the town of Ocean City mapping update can be reviewed as a refinement. And we also recommend that the chair approve the map update as proposed.
Okay, thank you, Kate. Any questions from the committee? Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve the staff
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any questions at this point? Discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Kate, number 2.
So again, this is the Ocean City text amendment that is related to the Ocean City mapping update that we just went over. This is proposed to reference the state wetlands maps, replace the language that references the state wetlands maps within this town's code to a reference to the critical area statewide base map, and then it incorporates the updated critical area maps by reference. It was approved on March 20th through ordinance 2023-06. You can see here the proposed text change. It's under Chapter 30, Article 7, in Section 30-551, that they want to say means all waters and lands and their tributaries to the head of tide and all areas indicated on critical area statewide base map. Everything else stays the same. They got rid of the state wetlands map, and then they also said, incorporated by reference, that showed on maps dated March 2022 and adopted by resolution of the mayor and city council. Staff recommends the commission concur with the chair's determination the text amendment be processed as a refinement, and we also recommend that the text amendment be approved as proposed.
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. And that is the end of our agenda for this morning. And so we will have almost a half-hour break-ish
Goodness.
before lunch starts. Yeah. Are we waiting till the other half comes in?
I think
Yeah.
they're probably wrapping up soon.
Okay.
So they're a little early, but I appreciate everyone being here in time for the 10 a.m.